for April 15th, 2024. We've already approved the agenda with all board members are present, along with Superintendent Wagner. And so we're going to go with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Vision statement, anybody have that available? They want to read it at all?
I do. The mission of the Red Wing Public Schools is to educate and inspire all students as they realize their full potential and become respectful, responsible, and productive citizens.
Thank you. Like we said, we already approved the agenda, so we've already done 1 and 2 on the business items. Resolution approving response to resolution not concurrent. Should we wait on that, or you got that? Superintendent. You want, is Wagner supposed to come? Let's go on, let's move on to the Burnside carpet replacement. Huh?
I don't know where she's at.
I don't see it. Go ahead, Mr. Gaylor.
Good afternoon, board members, Chair Bryant and Superintendent Wagner. I'm excited for today.
Let everybody know who you are out there watching.
Buildings and Grounds Director, Alan Gaylor with the school district. Super excited today to come to you with a proposal. We started talking about this back in September with our LTFM when we were asking for approval of that, and we did mention that we're looking at doing the Burnside carpet replacement for 2025. So today in your board packet is the documents for approval for that. We have selected Kraus Anderson for the contractor for the work to be done. If you want, we can go through the kind of the scope of practice. If you didn't have a chance to look at it, it's on page 2 of the backside of the sheet. We'll be doing 2 phases in this project. It is a rather large project to overtake throughout the summer. So we're kind of putting it in 2 phases, one being one side of the building and one second phase being the other half of the building. The reason being we obviously have to move things. Whether it be supplies in rooms, furniture, things of that nature. Take the carpet out, replace with different carpet, add vinyl baseboard around, and then we'll move on to the other side of the building. So overall, the project, I'm hoping to be done towards the end of July, first part of August, obviously, so we can be ready to go back in for school in session by the start of the year. The overall project, you can see with the price tag there of $346,576. And like I said, in the second page, you can go through and see all the scope of work that they will be doing. That's removal of carpet. I will tell you, we're doing a little bit different because it's an elementary setting. So we are going to do some carpet tiles instead of regular roll carpet for obviously for reasons of stains or anything to replace carpet that gets damaged. I don't believe we have any of carpet tiles in our district at this time now. So a little easier to do in that kind of a setting.
You don't have it in elementary schools.
We might have in some places, but I don't think it was the whole school. That's a good question.
The check, I think they did repair the tiles there for that reason.
Okay. All right.
Any other business?
I just want to be clear about how this is funded. I know, but for the public's sake, can
Yep.
you explain where this money comes from?
So this money, I can do it, but please so.
Want me to go?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so this is an LTFM project, long-term facility maintenance project, which means that we have a 10-year plan. And as part of that plan, you approved this in last year's actually 2 years ago, the plan that would then fund this school year's, this summer's activity. And so it was approved.
September.
Yeah, thank you. It was September because it's going into the fiscal year 25. So we're already starting something for fiscal year 25. The work's going to get done in July. And we can start in June is when you finish the project that matters. So we will go ahead and begin that process. The long-term facility maintenance money does come from state statute has the funding that is laid out. It's primarily for us levy dollars that are approved on a regular annual basis. That dollar amount doesn't typically change very much, but it does matter as to how we choose to, what projects are we doing. That shifts.
Any other questions at all before, do you have more at all?
No.
What is it?
And when in August will it be complete?
So that timeline, I can't give you an exact date.
What's the goal?
The goal is the end of July,
Okay,
but, you know,
right,
I'm just planning.
yeah. No, I know.
Hopefully, for sure, by the second week of August,
Yeah.
because I think the teachers come back like that third
That's all I'm
week or,
asking.
so, yeah.
I'll make a motion
Oh, go ahead.
to approve the Burnside carpet replacement as presented.
Motion by Ms. Schoenfelder, a second by Ms. Tiff. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then the 2023-24 school calendar. Is that you, Emily?
Yep.
Okay. Hello,
Hello, good afternoon, everybody.
everybody out there in TV land, know who you are.
I am Emily Seafeld. I am the teaching and learning coordinator and also the district assessment coordinator. And I'm just going to share something here quick.
You can't quite see you, you only got half of you. There you go.
There we go. When you have those different screens.
Okay.
So just the background on this is when we had calendar committee in the fall of 22 and planned for this year's calendar, we added a half school day on Friday, May 31st, which is graduation. And one of the discussions at the time on the calendar committee is if that day wasn't needed, to propose a change to that so there wasn't a school day and graduation. The reason that was honestly built in is if you remember, we had a really tough winter last year and we wanted to make sure we met our instructional hour requirements and the minimum days of 165. So that is just where that change is coming. And the proposed then would make the last day of school be Thursday, May 30th. Graduation is still Friday, the 31st. Teachers would have a full work day on the 31st.
Questions? Any other ramifications by changing this? Anything else that's just a little effect by changing this?
There's food service and some para things that'll affect as well. So there's a couple things like that to consider when you're looking at the proposal as well.
Did Junction at all, will that affect that?
Kids Junction right now is running only half day on May 31st because they also have to move into their sites. So in the event that you would move to have the last day of school on May 30th, they would offer Kids Junction staff or Kids Junction services to start moving later. So there is an impact to families. We have had some feedback, just in full transparency. There is concern for food insecurity, so breakfast and lunch. The direct impact for this for nutrition services para is a non-paid day, unless we agree to have them in and do services that would help with the just things to consider.
Questions? I have some ready.
Can we provide food on that day? Like have start the summer program on that last day?
That would be just a question.
Okay, if there's no school at all, they won't be here at all.
Well, right,
But the
So-
kids won't be here either, right?
right, but that's why I'm saying start the summer program with, that we provide food during the summer. because the kids won't be here, but now they're also not going to have access to Kids Junction. Is that what I'm hearing?
Mhm.
So, let me ask you this, let me ask this on the third, let's say right now currently is a half a day.
It is a half day, but I think we have to look at busing. I think it'd be more likely to be an early, like a 2-hour early release. Because if you think about it, even an early release for the elementaries, they get out at noon, 12 and 12:15. So I think it'd be more, once we work with busing, if it stays, it would be more like a 2-hour early release. Just because the elementary buses then would come back just like they always do to come get middle school and high school, so that we can't really get that time closer together.
How does this affect the contracted hours that the teachers have to, I mean, they're still working, but don't they have to have so many hours in front of
Instructional time?
Yeah.
Because our contract has
enough?
our calendar
Mhm.
instruction time, we would tap into whether we have one full school day or 12 hours. So essentially like one day.
Any other questions?
And have any of the any of the unions been contacted or been able to give feedback on it?
We like reached out to all the building admin for like what their thoughts are if it was a non like school, like a student day for that last day instead. And then from us, we have a staff reporting calendar, so it'd switch it from, it would have been like a half student day and half work day to a full work day. It still counts towards the 187 staff days that they work in a year.
So not having Kids Junction is concerning to me, and I know that there were complaints when we made calendar adjustments before for like food service
Mhm.
and support staff that are not paid if there aren't students here. I know when everything went haywire with COVID initially, like the paras, the support staff, basically were Kids Junction, right, for the kids who came. I don't know if there's like a way precedent for that, if, you know, essentially, because if they want to get paid for that day, and the food service would want to get paid for that day, if it could be an option for that work, but I don't know, I mean, I feel like that would be a lot to figure out, and not something that we would be able to build into the decision today. But I'm just wondering if things like that might be options, but.
So this is a recommendation, is to move forward with this.
Unless you want to get more information.
Mhm.
Which is we don't meet until May 6th, so that's because it's 4 meeting.
If we don't have Kids Junction, we need to give parents an opportunity to make other plans.
Yeah.
So the sooner that decision gets made, the better. Can we, I know it was really, we were really all excited when we had 3 school calendar years planned in advance, but this is exactly why we don't do 3 years in far out. We can't, and I feel like, I mean, on one hand, it'd be great to not have school that day, but on the other hand, I think we put a lot of families in a bind.
Mhm.
Especially, you know, it's only 6-7 weeks out. I don't know. I'm conflicted on this one. I know it doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal, but I really am conflicted. The food insecurity issues and Kids Junction. How many kids does that affect? Do we know?
It's a half-day service right now, already with all the, so that they can do. So families, so I reached out to them this morning, and she said, explain this to me, and she said, yeah, families already cleaned up for a half day, but, you know, then impact of when they organize for. I don't have total numbers of this.
I'm still confused on the Kids Junction. So it would be after school half day or
Before school, or during the school, because it's only half day.
Okay.
So, yes, this was very confusing for me too.
Is it still available even if there is no school for that half day? Why would it have to close if it's just a half day of school?
Open in the morning. It's available in the morning.
Yeah, but in the morning, but it's still half day, they do in school. Does that make sense?
Okay,
So I'm
yeah.
gonna have to.
So are they going
Okay.
for?
Okay, hold on, just a second, here, one at a time. Go ahead.
No, I understood, I caught the pattern, so, but I don't wanna present it.
So if school is in session, it will only be an hour and a half, and then you have to be at school district. And then go to school for a half day, but it's not offered after that. In the event that we do not have school, now we would have to have KJ longer, which would impact the moving time, which means the staff that needs to move into, where we going to move this?
Sunnyside.
We have to move them noon until 1 o'clock, as opposed to.
Go ahead.
So they are not having, when school gets out at 12:15 and 12:30 or whatever.
For the elementaries, yep.
They're getting on the bus and going home, or parents are
Mhm.
picking them up. There is no like, well, we're gonna be open for an hour and then we're gonna. It's the half day of Kids Junction, is just the one.
So,
And that-
go ahead.
And that's not something we can ask to have them extended beyond that hour and a half into the school day
So for the next day,
to cover the next day.
I think it came down to the adult staff that would be on
So it's not. What is normally done on that last day of school? Or the graduation day?
It's normally is a non-student day, which is why this was on the thing of if it wasn't used. I honestly can see easily both ways. So just presenting like what came from the calendar committee in the fall of last year. So typically it is a non-student day when we have graduation.
And has Kids Junction been open?
From what I understand, they do use that day of week, right, the summer program.
As someone uses it, it's not open.
Yeah, that's say.
Because Monday, KJ would start, or in the schools.
So it would be what families are used to typically happening.
It sounds like-
Okay, that helps.
We'll put that in there just in case we have a bunch of snow and cold again, cold school, okay.
And they do that, the same thing in the fall, to move back to whatever buildings, there's a day, moving day where if you use Kids Junction for childcare, that day is no childcare.
I think Jennifer hit the nail on the head with what we used to. Okay, what do you wanna do?
I'll make a motion to approve the amended calendar for the 23-24 school year as presented.
Is there a second? Motion by Ms. Schoenfelder, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Ossendorf, discussion? Maybe you could figure out the food thing on Thursday instead of Friday for some kind of weekend. You know, maybe Jess could do something like that instead of everybody working on a Friday, on a Thursday. Okay. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. All right, finance update. Let's see, yeah, the movie again. We could catch up there, anyway. Sorry about that. I didn't get to the- I didn't-
There is a handout that just came across your desk that, right before this meeting. In addition, it's added to the book and it will be posted online as well. So there are 3 pages. The first page is really the finance update, what I would consider a finance update, which is just where are we at with the budget to actuals for the current year at this point in time. So this is the budget for fiscal year 24, and it's through March 31st of 2024. And what we're looking at here is a table that shows you the general revenues, the general expenditures, food service revenues, food service expenditures, community education revenues, community education expenditures. We are looking at 2 different years. We are comparing the current year through March 31st, 2024, and looking at what is the actual amounts compared to budget, what percentage is that? And to take that same time frame a year ago for March 31, 2023, actual amounts, comparing that to budget and seeing that percentage. So you have the ability to compare where are we at so far this year and where were we at this time a year ago. Okay. So it is also now up on the screen for people to view there as well. And additionally, this does list an enrollment update also. So I took a look. We now have 7 months of data. And taking a look at that, we are currently just over 11 ADMs above the adopted budget projection. This is inclusive of the numbers that we assume are going to be served elsewhere and tuition billed back to us. So it's a large sum number. It's not necessarily the breakout between the two, which is kind of our challenge, but total number. Okay. Are there questions related to this document?
Questions, anybody? I got one. Why is our revenues down compared to 2023 by 12%? 11.75%.
Largely, that's going to be the fact that I haven't drawn on the federal funds yet because we're trying to work through the details of the new system.
Gotcha. Thank
Yep.
you.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Okay.
All right, so that's that page. Let's move on to the second page. Now we're shifting gears and we're talking about preliminary fiscal year 2025. Okay. So in producing this information for you, last time we met about preliminary 25 budget, we talked about the fact that we were working off from a model that the state has out, which is called the revenue projection model. At that point in time, the model they had available to us was the model intended for 2024. It did not necessarily have the upgraded formulas and things of that nature, so we had to kind of tweak it to make it work. They put a new one out as of March 25th. So I pulled that up, submitted the same information, our same assumptions for enrollment and such for next year into the new model. It did come out a little bit less in revenue than what we had calculated before. Looks like it's largely in the area of operating capital. And I think that has to do with the fact that the statute shifted how much of that money is going to be levy, how much is going to be aid. And so that shifting was picked up on the newest revenue projection model, and it is lesser amount of aid than what I had projected on the old model. Okay. So when you're looking at this, we're very close still with what we had talked about as far as what is the shift in revenue. We are anticipating that that revenue is going to be down by $663,440. Now, as you take a look at this, you can see the comparison of the levy for the revised current year budget compared to what we're projecting for preliminary 25. And you can see how that's reduced, right? The local revenue is pretty close, okay? And then you've got the amount that is our state aid. You see that that's increasing almost about the same amount that our levy is decreasing. So that's kind of that shift I talked about with the operating capital stuff, right? The main reason for the reduction is on the next line, which is the federal funds. And that's the exclusion for fiscal year 25 of the federal funds that we have had in the past and that we had budgeted for 24. There will still be some dollars that are not spent in 2024 by June 30th that are going to carry into fiscal year 25, but they're going to carry in based upon what we did not spend, and they're going to be used within that July, August, September period only. They will be a part of your next year's revised budget, and we're essentially going to just not include them at all for 25 at this point, okay? So when taking a look at those revenues, then what did we do? Then I took a look at the expenditures, and we took our current revised budget that you have just recently approved, and we rolled that forward with certain percentage assumptions. Certain percentage assumptions for various different object dimensions, which is our way of saying detail line items of our budget. Okay, so how much is it we're going to put on salaries? What are we going to put on benefits? And some of those were uniquely different. Like we put a different percentage in on health insurance compared to other benefits, right? Additionally, we put a different amount in for contracted services compared to contracted services for transportation, because we knew we had a significant shift coming on that contract. So with those percentage assumptions placed into a model that takes our revised budget and rolls it forward with those assumed percentage increases, that's where we're coming up with a number that you're seeing under the preliminary fiscal year 25, the row that says expenditures. And it's kind of highlighted a little bit on your paper. You can kind of see it on the screen maybe, but it's $41,295,236 compared to the $39,500,000 $599,045 that you approved in the revised budget. Reminder, this is only general fund we're talking, okay? So when comparing that preliminary FY25 budget with those roll forwards compared to where we're at right now for the revised budget, we have a change in that expenditure of $1,696,191, an increase, okay? So you have a decrease in your revenue, you have a decrease in an increase in the planned expenditures for the coming year. They work negatively, right, together to result in an overall change of $2.359 million. But we're going to focus on what is it we're projecting forward for just fiscal year 25. And with that revenue that you have and the projection for expenditures of $41.295 million, we have a change or a difference, I should say, I'll call it a gap, okay, between our revenues and expenditures that we're projecting for fiscal year 25 of $2,229,745. That's what we need to work on, right? So if you did nothing, you just rolled forward those percentages, that's what you could anticipate. But we can't afford to spend down fund balance by that. So therefore, we've got to do something. So far, what you see at the bottom of this page are the items that we have discussed with our administrators, as well as some other ideas that we already have made some headway on in trying to discern what we can do with this for the budget for next year. This is not complete, okay? So that's why you see at the bottom the amount yet to be determined. But let me walk through a little bit about what those lines that are showing are about. This is intended to be high level because we are not at the point of individuals, seniority lists, and all that kind of stuff that goes with the next steps. Right now, what we can say to you is we are looking at 15.6 FTE, that's full-time equivalent, number of people that would be impacted and would no longer be staffed going into the fiscal year 25. So we'd be reducing across the district by that 15.6 FTE. The next line is an amount identified for review of staff and processes. This is really, it says district-wide adjustments, it is, but it's also encompassing much of our district office, okay? The athletics and activities has two different lines, largely because we want to approach this from two different ways of thinking. One is what kind of revenue can be generated for athletics and activities to assist in minimizing this gap, right? And then secondly, what type of expenditure adjustments would we potentially be looking at in that same area? So to give you further understanding of what those are, we have the next two pages. So we'll go there for a moment. And Paul Hartman is here. He can also help with any of the questions we may have or understanding of what our intention is in this process. So this page pretty much discusses the first part of it, the revenue generation, and how we're coming up with our estimates. These are truly estimates. At this point in time, there's no known number of how many people would necessarily participate if these are the fees, right? So we need to make sure we're clear on that. But some options, essentially first is charging our yearly high school student activity pass at $25. This is an approximate revenue, assuming that 70% of our students purchase a pass. We currently offer that pass for K-7 at $30, I believe. $30. So this is a decrease in cost with the idea that we'd have more kids participating across the district. So we could make that a little bit of a concession on the dollar amount, but hopefully gain in volume. Again, this is just a change to the 812 that would generate what we anticipate to be around $13,825. Others may choose to instead purchase single game tickets. That will be an option as well for anyone. Our current activity fees right now, our non-sports students pay a $100 fee. We're using the assumption of 134 students who currently are registered for the $100 fee. And if that were to increase to 175 to match with the athletic fee, then we'd be looking at approximate revenue generation of $6,750 if 90 of those 134 students continued forward. And I'm sorry, if 90 students paid the fees, which is adjusting for 1/3 free and reduced of the total number. Does that make sense? All right, the third one on the revenue generation is taking a look at our total families and charging a yearly adult activity pass of $75. We would continue to charge for that yearly student K-7, but now that pass is only going to be $25 instead of $30. Approximate revenue for all of this is assuming 70% of parents purchase a pass and would generate potentially $48,615. Again, others could purchase a single game ticket. The adult ticket prices are intended to be raised to $10 from the $8 we now have. We know that, and we would keep students at $6. This would then bring us consistent with the Region 1 AA prices that we see for events. It would afford for the extra dollar that's necessary for the cash-free online ticketing system that we're able to do district-wide beginning this next year. But there's a $1 fee attached to that. So we would absorb that fee, but our rates would go up to $10. Staff pass would be offered at $30 per person. And if 50% of our staff purchase that, that would be approximately $1,500 of additional revenue. We would eliminate the individual cap of $350 and maintain the family cap of $850. We had, just for your information, 40 students with 3 sport athletes, and they were never paying that third season. So this would change and generate approximately $7,000 of revenue. When you sum up all of the yellows that you see, that totals the $77,690 of proposed revenue generation that you see here. Other things that we're going to keep an eye on is the HUDL revenue generated for 23-24 that's not budgeted for. Do you want to explain that one?
Yeah, that's our Huddle platform where you can watch online. This year we charge for that. So football, soccer, where we have a camera planted there in Marshall Field, and then hockey and basketball as well. We have a camera in the gym. We charge for that this year. Up to this point, we've raised just under $2,500 from that.
So considering that in the future, what does that look like? What does that mean for us is one thought. And then another thought is we have begun the process, please. We've begun the process of advertisement in the ice arena and having agreements with various different vendors that want to advertise in that fashion. And so the wondering is, do we explore something different also for potentially our Marshall Field and Sonju Gym?
Mm-hmm.
On the back side, we're moving then towards the expenditure adjustments. Do you want to explain this? Do you want me to keep going?
I can explain. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Based on some numbers that we're anticipating in girls hockey listed there, we will not have a junior varsity team next year. Right now, we have 3 paid coaches that we had this year for our JV and our varsity. We're not anticipating that JV team. So one of the recommendations is to eliminate one of those assistants, whereby we would have a head coach and then an assistant coach for that one team. Should also be noted that we had 2 individuals that volunteered with our girls hockey team this year, and Lisa and I have begun the discussion process of booster clubs and or other community organizations perhaps funding some of these coaches, and then the elimination of an assistant in baseball and softball. These individuals have largely been at the 9th grade level, where there's 2 coaches for a large number of kids, but then perhaps looking to the youth organizations if they're willing to help us in that endeavor, or if we can get another volunteer to help in those positions. DECA we've had as a paid advisor for a number of years. It hasn't exactly been a robust program participation-wise, and so we would be looking at the potential of eliminating that program we had talked about this as well. If we can get to a cap on the number of individuals that want to participate, then maybe we can offer that program and that stipend. 2 years ago, we began the process of hiring a concessions manager. Concessions changed a number of different times. Within the concessions manager, we did not charge the individual groups or organizations that used our facility to make funds, right? And we didn't charge back that stipend. We just took a percentage out of their funds generated, or we were looking now to ask them to absorb that cost. Concessions manager organizes all the foods, gets it ordered, or trains our staff, does a lot of things, and it's a great working combination between our youth organizations, our high school organizations, and that concessions manager. We would just ask that they pick up some of that cost because it's a service that they're not able to do. So that's the $7,500, and then a reduction in supplies of 25%, which would equal about $4,000.
So this is kind of a deeper dive into exactly what the activities and athletics adjustments would look like. Just taking a look at these adjustments then in combination, you see those then back over on the preliminary FY25 budget page. And with the 15.6 FTEs, the $200,000 coming from primarily district office, as well as then the athletics and activities, that is an incomplete list. I'm saying that again because there's more work to be done in other department areas within the budget. We just haven't been able to get all of that work done and accomplished yet enough to give you those details. But it does mean that if we take that from the budgetary gap we're looking for, we are now looking for an additional $370,091 in other adjustments yet to be determined.
Before we open up the questions, let's talk, I don't think we're done. Talk about the 23rd.
Okay, you want me to, or?
Both of you can.
So Personnel and Finance Committee, along with HR, and Lisa talked a little bit more about being transparent to the community. And so giving a space for not only our community members, but our staff members to come and also understand where we're at. We've already worked with our district leadership team, our principals, individually and as a group. But we feel that we need to allow things at the table just to sometimes ideate things that we haven't thought about, but also to just give a space that we can share some feedback. We're also, so April 23rd at the high school from 5 to 7 p.m. We'll open the cafeteria. We're also creating a survey, so in the event that you aren't able to come, there are 3 questions we're designing for the community to give us feedback, or you can do both. So you can come in person, or you could do the survey or do both. So that will actually, the survey will be released next Sunday in the news. And then we'll also be looking at the public ego yet. So which I should talk to you about. Maybe you're ready. So that's a little bit of the April 23rd.
School board members are invited. It will not be a school board meeting, but we may have a majority of school board members in attendance. So Lisa, whoever will have to alert the public that there may be a forum of school board members at the budget forum, but it will not be a formal school board meeting, nor will we participate in the school board. You must have a question.
I don't have questions. No, I do. I'm wondering if we eliminate the 15.6 FTEs, what does that bring our ratio of students to teachers at overall?
So if you recall, when we last met, we laid out for you what our enrollment projections were. We haven't shifted those. We also laid out for you what it was that we were anticipating for class sizes and how that might shift. It is shifting up a bit from what we know we currently have, because we know we have a much lower teacher to student ratio happening across our sites at this moment. And so what we're doing is essentially what I call right sizing. So really taking what is the projected enrollment, dividing it by that class size ratio, here's the number of FTEs, and holding pretty close to that across the board on these. The one exception I would say would probably be it's challenging with the high school level simply because of the impact of the 5RO on that number. So we want to make sure we've got enough staff to be able to manage the core requirements that are absolutely needed along with the electives, but also account for some of the students that traditionally this year looks like they are now shifting over to the 5RO. And so anticipating some of that trend may continue into the next year.
Is that our last push in the community? We had some referendum promises, and I want to make sure that we're still within what we promised the community, and I don't remember what that is.
So when we went forward last year to combine the two questions, the promises were not part of that. So
what
and that's been kind of a point of contention, because we've talked through that with our principals. And we have staffing numbers, so we're not way above what the promise numbers are, because our enrollment is right. We're just, I don't know what percentage you would say, but it really depends on what school you're looking at.
I think it's depending upon the grade level you're looking at, it's like a 1 student increase at least across each of the grade levels. Aside from that, I'd have to look to see for sure, because I'm not as familiar as to what those may have been assumed to be before.
Yes.
I do recall, because I was watching board meetings at that time, when you all made the decision, wasn't for Rachel, to keep the levy a little bit less, basically the same, yes, that it was discussed that keeping it the same meant they might not be able to maintain those class size promises. So as far as transparency, I feel like the board was very transparent at that time in letting the public know that we're gonna hold it down here, but that means we're gonna have to give a little bit there.
And the presentations we did in the public, as I was part of that with Frank and Leanne, that came out as well.
So,
I don't know if this is the place to ask this, but we currently have some staff who are funded with ESSER funding, and that goes away. So what happens to those staff?
That will depend upon, some of this is about potentially some seniority matters. It could be additionally just the positions themselves are shifting over to the general fund. At this point in time, those are inclusive in this number that you see of the 41,295,000. So all portions of those, there were 3 particular positions that were included in the past that were funded by our ESSER funds. And so all 3 of those are in there 100% at this point in time as expenditures until decisions are made with regard to those positions for sure.
why don't you talk a little bit too about, when we met, talking about some positions, people that have left or are leaving have not been filled, so 15-6.
Right.
Will include part of that.
Yeah, so we're talking positions here. So as you now start to move into the realm where administration will look at now, who are these people that we're talking about? The first thing we're all looking at are what are the open positions? So we know that there are positions that may have been vacated due to resignations and or potential retirements at the end of the year or things of that nature. As we plan for next year, of course, those openings are going to be first thought through as to whether or not they fit. Sometimes that may not necessarily work the best because of licensure, right? So we have to make sure that the licensures that we need for particular subjects are covered. And if the opening is actually over here in this licensure and that's not really where you need to decline your FTEs, but rather it's over here, you're going to find that we may be adding some positions to offset those that are also being reduced, and it's all about licensure. The people and who they are and everything else will be determined based upon the seniority and how that works through.
Yes.
I have some questions for Paul.
Yeah.
How are you going to handle, currently now if you have a student participating in sports, parents get free passes, or is that going away?
That's
So you can't go see your own kid playing a sport. You get charged to go see your kid playing a sport.
and I will say, I was in front of this board, different board, when I proposed it 5 years ago. And it was a great thing at the time, and I still think it's a great thing. I wish we could offer it. We're the only school that I'm aware of that offers it. When we bring it up at conference and or region meetings, they say, "You do that?" I said, "Yeah." Wow. So yeah, we tried to look at the rates at which adult passes are charged in our area as well as our conference, and we tried to be below that threshold, which is why the 75 is listed there. That's for the entire year. It's not for the season. So if an individual purchases that pass at $75, that will get them into any event from the fall to the end of the year.
And I see there's no family pass.
No.
Because I will say, as somebody with a lot of kids, if you don't buy a pass, it's like $50 or $60 to come to one basketball game or something with your kids, which is pretty cost prohibitive
Yeah.
for bigger families.
Yeah.
The only other concern I had about the activities was this is primarily just increasing fees to generate revenue. Yet, and I know you've reduced some of the coaches, but it was more based on kind of you don't have a hockey team, enough people, but I wonder, just when we're throwing everything on the table, if we need to look at reductions in how many activities and athletic options we offer here. We've never done that. We've had declining enrollment, and we're still offering all the activities and sports that we offered with a bigger student population. So I don't see anything about right-sizing the number of activities to our student body.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's something, I think it should be on the table when we're looking at cutting $2.some million and we're getting rid of teachers and sorry, it's not a popular comment, but
No, I can tell you that it's been on the table in my head, but we chose not to present that this evening. But I understand where you're coming from.
We love that 400 families that got 5 kids each coming to our school too, so
Hmm.
we love to do that.
well, it is the risk though, just to be real, that, our goal, it should be to make money, but our goal should also be not to limit spectators. And I think you're really gonna hash down, spectators are not gonna come because of the cost. If you just have a volleyball player and you're just gonna come for a few home volleyball games, is it worth it to pay hundreds of dollars for your pass? Probably not. So, I hate to use it as a way to keep families or kids or spectators out, to be honest, even though it's in alignment with
Mm-hmm.
other.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the free passes were sometimes used inappropriately over the last few years, and our ticket takers noted that, and we lost a lot of revenue from that. We're trying to keep these fees down, even for our high school students. $25 is $25. I understand that. But I think a lot of times in Red Wing, people assume that the ticket taker knows who's coming in and they know the family and they know that's not always the case, right? And I think we're trying to make that more efficient for our ticket takers, people just walking in. So even if it's taking that step to get that pass, it would make it easier on our workers, and it would be a more true reflection of who's in our games and making sure we're getting the revenue that we should be getting to run our programs. And this wasn't easy to put together, but we were trying to look at, how can we be similar to schools in our area while trying to generate some revenue and maintain our programming.
So like the senior citizen free pass is going away too?
No, that's staying. Our plan is to keep that.
I had a question about this just because I didn't know that there were free passes. That's astounding to me. My school, that was not the case. And having kids in fine arts, I paid a whole lot of money to go watch my kid every night at the Sheldon. Anyway, so I was wondering, looking at this though, the passes, this is revenue that you're expecting to come from parents or families who had not been paying previously. Because I was trying to figure out, the others will purchase single game tickets. I had assumed that people already were purchasing those single game tickets. So I was failing to see how this was going to make money if you were selling a pass that then was a deal for those families. But the answer is that this is revenue from people who have not been paying at this point.
Over the last 5 years. And to your point, I completely understand where you're coming from on the Sheldon. It was that unique relationship with renting the Sheldon, and so that needed to be treated a little bit differently, but
Oh, of course.
completely understand where you're coming from. Yeah.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
As somebody who is not a sports fanatic, weird, right? Yeah, my whole family is. But, I really think you could really get a lot of participation if you had like maybe halftime shows with the students or something, because they actually get their families to come in, as individuals, right? Just kind of maybe, or get have the cheerleaders go down to the middle and elementary schools to really hype up winter sports. Because I have Chris's grandma, Franny, she came and watched all your sports and supported without grandkids or great grandkids in the system. And she really prided herself on that winger sports pride. And I know it's there. So just maybe more alternative ideas to put in addition to these things.
Thank you.
I would, if you have time, what's the 15th today, 23rd, I didn't realize the Big Nine, how the other schools do it, but you could put something together, because this might come up at the budget forum, what are the other schools doing on the passes and stuff, if you have that information that we could have available to them that day. The other thing, and I'm a senior citizen now, don't bring it up again, and I'm just comparing to neighboring schools. Goodhue does charge the senior citizens a couple bucks, and Cannon Falls charges $5. So I'm just saying, it's a great thing for the senior citizens, don't get me wrong, but I remember years ago, people wanted to pay money to go watch the band concert. Senior citizens, they want here, I'll give you a couple bucks.
Brandy Schaefer would pay $20
I
to
know
see
Brandy.
every single one of those
She went
meals
every
here.
And so I'm just throwing that out there as to, senior citizens are great. They like to come for $2. They would probably, not that it's gonna break them or break it over, but everything should be looked at.
Well, I was gonna ask, maybe since you have the data on the Big Nine, whatever you pulled up, could we also get data that shows how many other sports or activities our schools in our Big Nine offer? And compare that to us, because we're like the smallest, right? In the Big Nine, that we're tiny compared to the rest of them, just to see how we compare.
Comparable, probably we're gonna do apples.
Yeah.
A green apple to a red apple, as opposed to, going to Bloomfield, or going to Rochester.
Yeah, we could probably do a better why the activity, your office, us, district office, promoting more things, activities around for people to come and watch. People that don't have students or students in the school district may not know all the stuff going on. Maybe they're a sports person, they know that, but they don't know the bands, like the choirs, jazz, all that, the play, you get some advertising. Maybe we could all do a little better part of educating our community that, every little bit helps.
Is there currently a charge to get into non-athletic things, so like plays, speech, competitions, robotics?
Yeah, good question. Speech meets are free. Our plays in the past, depending on, so the musical, obviously, large fee, right? In the fall play, it was just donation. We
That was
moved
only for students, it was $5 for non-students.
with
I mean,
the
it's not
canned
a
good,
lot, but
right?
Students was a donation.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
Otherwise,
We moved to charging at the middle school play this year, which was just completed, and people are willing to pay. We just deposited that today, actually. So we did well there, and then we will charge this spring for our high school play as well. So,
Times change.
yeah.
Times change, and it's unfortunate, but gotta stay with them, like the rest of the kids down the road. So, and cutting isn't one of them. But it's around the state, many schools are looking at it too. So. Anything else?
So what's the next step then?
Next step is the budget.
23rd?
And then, oh yeah, ULAs, we may have, if we have to come up with some ULA cuts. What is that? Am I saying that right?
I requested these.
Leave of absence. We tentatively may have a special meeting on the 29th of April. We have to give them 60-day notice.
So that's if the
If,
adjustments to the budget that we identify result in a requirement of a ULA that would need board approval.
May, so we'll have to know that by next,
Save the date.
a week from this coming Wednesday, the 25th. We'll have to know that, to schedule that. So just pencil that in as a possibility. And it'll be just a special short meeting, and we might have one other thing.
What time is that?
What time would you like it at? 5 o'clock? There's one more thing I was thinking about. Yeah, but that may, I'm not saying for sure, it may be. We'll talk more about upcoming meetings. On the agenda. So, am I right on that? Okay. Anything further?
Not for me.
Okay, Paul?
No, unless there's any
Thanks for coming.
questions. All right.
Thank you.
High school ELA curriculum update. Thank you. Hello, Emily.
Hello again. Let me share my screen and we'll get started. So I'm here to talk about high school ELA curriculum update, which I will tell you the department is very excited about it. If you do not know, they are over 20 years since they've had an updated curriculum. Not talking novels, like novels have been purchased, but their current textbooks are from the late 90s. So this is really exciting for the department, for us as well. So as I said, it's been over 20 years since their textbooks have been updated. In November of this year, the ELA department reviewed different samples of curriculum, that November 3rd day that we had staff development. And they reviewed different samples and they were really interested in Savas My Perspective. So we reached out and we've actually had some pilots going on since second semester of that. And that is our goal right now is we're going to get Savas My Perspective for grades 9, 10, and then it switched to American Literature. So American Literature, 9th and 10th grade, they have that core ELA program class that they take. And then there's different choices. So this would also cover American Lit 1 and American Lit 2. It is a brand new edition that's being released in the fall of 2024. We got preview samples of everything this year. It is student-centered. It has very diverse and relevant texts. It's research-based. It's aligned with the science of reading. It has built-in multilingual language supports and strategies that are aligned to WIDA, which is the standards for multilingual learners. It has scaffolding built in. It's flexible and customizable. That was a big thing that the high school ELA department was looking at when we looked at curriculum, is you might have a brand new teacher and you might have really experienced teachers, and you need resources that fit everybody. So those that can kind of move things around, and it's designed that you can move it around. You can move the units around digitally. And for someone that might be brand new that really just needs that structure as they're going into their teaching career as well. It would have a student textbook. And then the students actually have digital access to everything as well, which is where you're going to find some of those supports. So it'll read text to them. They can be assigned different levels of text as well. One thing that's really nice is it has the different texts in multiple languages, and it has vocab support there as well. And the teachers would then also have a print and digital resource. But they have waited a very long time here at the high school and have been very, very patient. So. Questions at all?
When you talk about diverse texts, what does that mean?
Multiple perspectives. So the actual name, My Perspectives, comes from, they have an essential question for the units. And then it is the perspectives in different texts. It might be narrative, fiction, different backgrounds, cultures, all of those things. And it is really about hearing everybody's narrative and perspectives and learning and growing together. So it's designed both as whole group to peer group to independent learning.
One thing that came up today when that with tribal, making choice, Leanne,
Mm-hmm.
was in agreement with, council to include them in a process to make sure that we're looking for individuals on this too. So I was quickly Googling, some things, so there are some things in place, it's probably not perfect.
Mhm.
I think the process around it, because it sounds like a little more collaboration and communicative, so storytelling that way, so. Do you know any more about how it was vetted from that perspective?
I know a little bit. So it first starts, so Ed Reports reviews curriculum first and then they grade it, right? So that's a green. And then if you look at their authors, I have so many tabs open on Savas right now as well. But it's similar to that they bring in different narratives and voices and perspectives. But I'll be honest, I don't have like a set list right now of all of the texts. We have access to the online currently. We can always go in and look, but I don't have a list of all of that in front of me right now.
So diverse authors too,
Yes.
so it's not just all like.
Yep.
All the same.
Yes.
Yeah, the meeting we were at today, one of the fellow council members stated, the curriculum is old, especially on the
Mhm.
American and the code.
Yep.
They would like superintendent stated, to be involved in that change. And then we also thought, about all diversity groups in our school,
Mhm.
Between Hispanic outreach and Black student and like that, some type of updating our curriculum.
Yep.
What's current, so that's a task for you.
Okay. Yep.
You, the superintendent?
Yeah, I can, I'll get that information to you. I just don't have that all right
No.
in front of me right now. But yeah.
It just came up today, so.
Well, it's really important. That's one of the things when we do vet curriculum, it's the first thing to look at. If you remember when we heard about social studies earlier this year, that's what we were really looking for, that it isn't that one singular narrative that a lot of the stuff that we are replacing over the years had. So.
That's good to hear.
Just because we had ran into a situation like this because not all Indigenous people
Mhm.
are the same.
Yep.
And so, leaving room to be able to adjust things, if it's possible, being able to work with tribal council in the future from the Indigenous
Yep.
perspective, because I'm gonna go on a limb. They're probably not gonna put a Dakota perspective in there.
Nope. And I agree with you. If you remember, we talked about adding in, when we talked about social studies, had that in as well, but then adding in the Dakota, because that is where we are and we want the stories here. And so that is part of that, is once we have this, is just really looking, we find those units, be like, you know what, it's great, it's here, but we want this here instead, and working with tribal and Prairie Island and everybody to put that in.
Well, because we ran into a situation
Yep.
when my child was in school, we were asked to do totem poles
Which, yep.
for Native American History Month, and I was so offended,
Mhm.
right? So, no. And so that's why I just, always working with the different groups too, just to make sure that we're inclusive to the
Mhm.
area that we're in as well as learning about other.
Yep. Yep. I 100% agree.
And the chair talked about, Redmond is their home.
Mhm.
It was where their village was in this area, so they want to work with us. Very, very good meeting today.
The land full of secrets, Jim, we want to share them.
I love that.
Okay, anything else?
No, it'll be a 6-year purchase. For the digital, doesn't mean that the textbook goes away at that point. It's just the digital is a 6-year. And then we're going to get class sets of the hardcover textbook. So not each student copy, it saves as well. So.
Any other questions?
Where does 8th grade fall in there?
So 8th grade, 6th through 8th grade are kind of grouped together because that is more of a middle school model. They are due. They're not part of this right now. So this is really a 9th through 11th grade right now. They did get a new grammar resource next year in 7th and 8th grade that they're going to do some curriculum writing with on our days we've built in June, really to enhance grammar and writing, because that's a big area that we've seen as well. So they got something called EB Academics. It's actually a fantastic program. It just doesn't go higher than that. One thing that does bring me back to this that ELA department was very excited about is Savas has writing and grammar built in, because they see the need for grammar as well. So we got the optional grammar resources as well with this So that's where they are. So they don't have they are due in the next couple like cycles, but they are very excited for the EB academics, which is going to really fill in some of that grammar and writing components as well. And we'll do some curriculum writing around that.
And sixth grade is
So sixth grade is under Wonders 2020, and I know we're tight on time. I know all of these, so that is looped in with the K6 ELA right now. So, and
awkward grade.
yeah, it's kind of in the middle right now, and that is through. Oh, I have it all laid out because it's math the next 2 years. I want to say the fall of 27, so it would be the previous year that would be piloting for ELA for K6. And probably 6-8 at the time too. That might be a great time to really do that K-8 together. So,
Thank you, Emily.
thank you.
All right. Resolution approving response to resolution of not. Resolution approving response to resolution. Let everybody out there. Video land know who you are.
Good evening. I'm Allegra Smishek, Director of Teaching and Learning and Assistant Superintendent, and I am bringing back the resolution that we worked on in workshop. There were 2 of the recommendations that the board requested a little more information on, and so I did work with APAC Chair Janice Erickson just to really clarify what they were looking for, and I think we came up with a good response for the board to consider tonight.
Any questions? Is this going to put us in compliance?
So the vote of concurrence or non-concurrence is annual. So they won't conduct a vote again until probably January of next year. But in terms of staying in compliance with the state, yes. So we need to respond in writing by 60 days from February 20th. So we're getting close.
Okay. Their motion,
We're,
go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna ask, we reviewed this and had this in the last board packet and we weren't prepared. Were there any changes to that, from that one?
Yes. So in the previous one, I'll pull up the specific recommendations. There were 2 items that we had wrote. We seek more information. So I went and sought that more information so that we could be more specific and not have that kind of hanging in the meantime. And those were recommendation 6.
Can you put it up, or is it in, it's this page, it's a double-sided.
I can also read it. So recommendation 6 was ensure the removal of access to school-provided technology or biological needs, such as bathroom access, are not practiced in schools as consequences for discipline or academic reasons. The other one that we wanted more information on was collaborate with number 8, collaborate with transportation services to ensure safety for students on buses and set expectations for customer service with parents. So our response now reads, sorry, I'm having some Zoom issues. Recommendation 6, the superintendent will clarify expectations that students should not be denied technology or biological needs as consequences for discipline or academic reasons with principals and create a communication plan to ensure district-wide messaging and accountability by May 15th.
So these changes were reflected in the information we got in our board packet this week.
Correct.
Okay.
Number 6 and number 8.
Yep. So recommendation 8, the director of business services and response to recommendation 8. The director of business services and the first student transportation manager will collaborate to collect family feedback, including Native families, regarding their lived experiences to guide improvements for the 24-25 school year. The director of teaching and learning / assistant superintendent will seek APAC feedback on a culturally responsive process to collect this feedback at the May APAC meeting.
I guess I don't understand number 6. Could you clarify that for me and why that was put on there?
Sure. So there were a few individual incidences that came up from families where students had their computer taken, their Chromebook taken away because they were off task, but like for an extended period of time. So then the student had issues staying caught up in class and fell further behind. Another issue that was brought up was a student had to go to the bathroom, was not allowed to go, and there were some medical issues that necessitated that they were allowed to go. So they are specific examples, but clearly there's some miscommunication happening that staff are implementing things that way. So if the superintendent at the next principals meeting makes a point of clarifying, reviewing with principals, and setting an expectation that they do the same at their staff meetings with some accountability measures. Because it really is, the Red Wing School Board does not have a policy that supports that kind of disciplinary action. So it isn't a policy shift so much as like communicating that should not be done, because
That's just a basic human need all around. I just don't think it fits in the Native American non-concurrence, if you ask me.
Sure.
And nor do I think the other one does. With number 6 about getting things taken care of, these are just, the parents should be communicating with liaisons just like the rest of us. So I just don't think number 6 really fits in there, to be honest.
I would agree, Vicki. I was thinking the same thing.
It
Like, why would
seems
this be
weird.
specific to APEC?
Yeah, it seems weird, not gonna lie. And I like number 8, but that's not what it translated to me reading it from what you had said, right? In number 8, it states that we're gonna have them sit at the table with us when we're negotiating, which isn't. They're a governing body underneath APAC. You know, they are a governing body, but they're not with us at the table, right? So if they're gonna have a seat, so is the Black Student Union, and so is the Hispanic, so is everybody else. So how you specified it by getting feedback from every student's experience with riding the bus and having like a larger, discussion about that with our whole, I just don't think it should be specified in this. Because a lot of these are just, this is supposed to help us with getting our culture and things in the door, right? These are just, they're kind of spilling in disciplinary issues almost, it seems like, right? But we did have great conversations with tribal council. And I do firmly believe that these things will start getting taken care of in the future. So however we address them here, it's just, number 8 can stay, but I just don't like number 6 right there, because it seems like we're only requesting basic human needs for Native Americans, and that is wrong.
I think our recommendation though, in response to what APEC asked, it says, will clarify expectations that students should not be denied technology or biological needs as consequences for discipline. So that does cover all students if it's brought to principals and principals bring it to staff. So I think the response that we would be approving tonight is appropriate for what APAC is asking. Maybe what the idea might not as a board, it's hard for us to see why that is a particular issue on this document, but I think our response to the document is appropriate. Does that make sense? Because right now we're approving our recommendation. So I guess Nikki, my question for you is, do you disagree with our response to number 6 or the initial?
What's our response to number 6? All I see is ensure the removal of access to the school-provided technology or biological.
That's what APAC is asking for.
And then if you scroll down to the next page, that's what our response is.
where it says like recommendation.
Recommendation.
Yeah, recommendation 6 is our response to it.
So that's what we are going to do.
Yeah, I think our response is fine. But like in the future, just maybe let's keep APAC, this is to do, not disciplinary, you know, more or less, but more or less to make sure that our culture and our, is inside here.
That makes sense.
Want that down there?
And I-
Back number?
I did see there's an MEA session that's specific for like APAC training, and our chair and vice chair will be attending the conference.
Okay.
So I think getting clarification on like the purpose of the document is a really good idea.
So we're okay with the response back. I realize, what board member Clark is saying, number 6 by the APAC committee probably isn't really felt that it should be included in the resolution, their request, because it's for all students. The first one.
Where's, I think, the letter of non-concurrence is about culture and education.
Yes,
It is not about
disciplinary
discipline.
action.
But 6 is what
Yeah,
they put in the letter.
Yes,
right.
yes,
You
yes.
know,
So we
yeah.
have to
6
respond
being
to
put in the
Well,
letter.
I just,
By them.
it's just weird approving of, when you see bathroom needs in there, a basic human need.
I get you now.
You know what I'm saying? And that just should be just for everybody, and I just don't think it has place in here. It should be addressed, yes. But from now on, and this is probably where APAC maybe felt that we haven't traditionally gotten things addressed with disciplinary.
Yeah.
So there's kind of putting them on to just everything, and so we can assure that we get to have a really good meeting with tribal
Right.
council, that we are gonna move forward with these.
We're going to continue on. We're going to build on that even more.
Right.
Okay, so we do need to do something on this because the deadline is approaching.
I make a motion to approve the resolution in response to the resolution of non-concurrence as presented.
Motion by Ms. Ossendorf, is there a second?
second.
Second by
Yeah.
Ms. Roll. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
We need a roll call.
Oh, roll call, that is a resolution.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, it is a resolution, my mistake.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Ms. Ossendorf?
Aye.
Aye, chair votes aye. My apologies on the resolution. Just that. Okay, upcoming meetings and future topics. We talked about the 23rd, the budget forum, in the cafeteria. We may have a forum of school board members present for that. No board discussions or action will be taken that evening, unless it's an emergency meeting. And tentatively, there may be a special school board meeting on September 29th at 5 p.m.
April 29th.
Did I say May? Well, we can have one then too. I'm way ahead of myself here. April 29th, please watch from an email from Superintendent Wagner if we need to have that. And we'll have to know by Wednesday, the 24th, to post it as a special meeting.
Where are we at with the cell phone ad hoc?
We'll,
I saw it was at the,
we can't talk about anything other than what's on the agenda for the special meeting, so you need to contact Superintendent. Sorry, I'm just going by what they
Well,
will say.
no, but you're talking about for future topics.
well, I see it's on here for a May
Oh,
20th workshop, but
Okay.
I thought we were referring to ad hoc, so I was asking.
Any other future meetings or future topics? We can go that route. Anything more on that? Maybe that's what you're referring to, the future topic. Anything else? I'll make a motion to adjourn the 2 p.m. special meeting.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. I think, is there a lot of people out there, Emily?
4:55, we usually reconvene. Yeah.
No. No early birds. They're gonna show up just
We
in
got,
time.
our next meeting is at 4:55, so
And then we
I think, yeah, we won't.
Now we're back